So, really cool stuff. I was reading the Memoirs of President Joseph III, trying to and actually was rereading. I'm like, I think I've already read this. Um, because I bought it almost 6 years ago, several years after he's left Plano. Joseph Smith III lived in Plano from 1866 to 1881, and I'll show again that he started visiting Kendall County as early as the year 1860, right? But you know, it's like 1887. He's been gone living in Iowa for like 6 years. And so here he is in Plano, and he's invited to address the Army of the Republic, and I don't know. So he just was able to go speak to people and the people of Plano. And then he gets a horse and buggy. It had been a number of years since he'd driven between LaSalle and Plano. So then he went to Sandwich, 5 miles away, right? But anyway, so then he went and got a horse and buggy and drove over to Mission, LaSalle. It had been a number of years since I'd driven between these points. So he frequently drove between Plano and LaSalle. And he gets more specific, you guys. And for several miles, the country seemed very strange to me. My thoughts were busy with memories and scenes of the past, but for some reason I could not make the lay of the land appear correct or get any familiar bearings. It was quite a confusing experience. Like, he's starting to get a little bit scared. However, as I passed through the little village of Georgetown and approached the farm home of a family named Haverhill, I looked them up. They're from Newark. All at once these mists over my memory cleared away like a vanishing cloud, and I could have found my way confidently to any part of the country I'd ever visited from the entire locality. Georgetown was very familiar to him, and I found out that Georgetown is what they called Newark. And the Haverhill family, I looked up on Family Search, and this one guy's his daughter went and got married. And as you look at this, you can just sort of see his daughter is from, says Newark, but as I show the next document, you can see they probably just thought the K was a D. And then right here we can see Carrie of Newark, Illinois, and who married them, someone by the name of Smith. Wow. Always said that they were of Big Grove, which is the township that encompassed the village of Newark. So even though it says Newark, Illinois right here, right there you go. So here you can see the townships. There's Little Rock Township. It's so ironic that it looks, to their map, like Plano is like directly, straight down from. So anyway, let's look at this first. So this is from an 1875 newspaper that Elmer Dixon compiled and edited, but I'm going to show you another website that says the same thing. And he's talking about Newark. And it's near the railroads. But for many years, the place was called Georgetown. And then this is, Illinois history. This is their official, like, government website. Government elected officials. Like, this is an official website saying it was originally settled as Georgetown. Okay, and so his route, but there is a Georgetown, Illinois, that is on the borders of Indiana. Nowhere near LaSalle. So this is 159 miles south. It's really due south of Chicago, over 100 miles. There is a Georgetown there, but Newark used to be called Georgetown. And where is he traveling from? Plano to LaSalle. So he's going this direction. He's not going down to Indianapolis. So this is really outside of, really close to Indianapolis. You can just see that. He's talking about Newark. And so it'd been a while since he'd traveled between these points. And you see, you travel through Newark, which used to be called Georgetown, to LaSalle. And why would he be going to LaSalle? Well, guess who's from LaSalle? His second wife, Bertha Madison. And so they're living in Plano. Her family's still in LaSalle. I'm like, well, that makes sense. So again, I'll show this to you again. He's coming, traveling down. Might have actually been coming from Sandridge. But anyway, he's going to LaSalle, and he got lost. But once he hit Georgetown, once he passed through the little village of Georgetown and approached the farm, like, he knows people there. He knows people in Newark. And the Haverhill family, I've just known, I've looked them up. Obviously, he's not putting a first name, but I did look. I spent like an hour earlier this week just looking at the different Haverhills and the children that might be close to his age. And this one guy, one of the children that really stayed in, well, Big Grove, but Newark. But all the census records will say Big Grove, like it does for J.S. Bibbins. But that encompasses Newark. That is the township. And so when they did census records, they always named the township, not the actual specific village. So for whatever reason, and that Haverhill family was like one page away from J.S. Bibbins in the census record. They're on this page, and then they're on the same day. So the same day, the census record met with the Haverhill family and also met with the Bibbins family. So they didn't live far from each other. Anyway, but it was familiar. He went there a lot. And for the first time he mentions, and then now I'm like, wait a minute, let me look at this again. So I'd found this a long time ago. And again, I don't support the RLDS mission, faith, never have. I just had read that a Methodist preacher was of Kendall County when Joseph Smith III lived in Plano. He was friends with a Methodist preacher there. But it was the predominant religion in Kendall County, really. But, Joseph Jr. used to be Methodist. Like, he related more to them. And so I think his children still, and their mother grew up Methodist. So they still like, well, they're not bad people, but we don't believe that anymore. But I just wanted to see if he mentioned Bibbins, and just kept reading and tried. I think he just kept a very detailed journal. So it's a 500-page book, and it's hard to read. And I was rereading some stuff. But anyway, this was on page 80 of the Memoirs of President Joseph III, that he talks about visiting the saints in October. So this is fall, but it's October 6th. It talks about Israel Rogers being 4.5 miles south. I'm like, okay, well, he's close to Newark. This is close to Newark. But now I can read this and understand he's talking about Newark right here on page 82. Again, he's still talking about this visit that he took to visit the saints there. And so they had a conference that October 1860 in that section of country known as Mission in LaSalle, a few miles from Millington, Georgetown, which is Newark, in that section of country known as Mission, LaSalle, where his wife is from. Second wife ended up being from, and west of Ottawa. And he talks about it was a region in which George A. Smith, who went to Newark in 1844, and William O. Clark had labored extensively in the early days of the church. And where many brethren from New York had settled farms and settled down. They refused to accept Brigham Young, except, his own second wife, his father. I don't think he hated Brigham Young. I think they were just from Norway and didn't want to leave. They just speaking a different language still, occasionally. I'm sure they learned. Bertha grew up speaking English. She grew up there in 1843, but I'm sure she knew Norwegian. So Sure, that was fun for Joseph III. Um, but it was, you can see here, 1869 is when they got married. Um, so the whole time of courting her and when his wife died, and also the fact that there were people, so he must have gone there to recruit her initially to help him out when his wife was dying and then did die. So she already was like helping out the family, and then his wife died and they fell in love and got married. Um, so he's nowhere near. He's not going through a city that's down here to get to there. He's just not. He is talking about Newark. So about Newark. I think that's amazing. Nice little thing to figure out. But yeah, and if you want to learn about the townships, but I think the best thing is really just to look at this really old map and see Kendall County. Yeah, they're not even showing Sandwich, ironically, but there is a city, Little Rock, but there's the township, Little Rock, and there's Plano. So the Joe Smith papers tried to claim that Joseph Smith III, they made a little mistake there, trying to say that he left Plano and moved to the town of Little Rock because of the census record. The census records always mentioned the township, so you can. Oh, they're about that. Okay. And ironically, the guy who printed my picture died in Plano, Kendall County. But the newspaper says Little Rock when it talks about his death. But all the census records always mention Big Grove. So when you look at that old-timey map of Kendall County, you can see several townships within the county with the villages inside of them. But he was buried in the Millington Newark Cemetery, where his family was. And then this is what they wrote. This is what they saw, and then their reference was Ancestry.com, right? It was the census record of 1870. Like, oh, well, he moved to Little Rock. No, that's a township that encompassed Plano. He still lived in Plano, right? The same as the Bibbins family. I always mention Big Grove, and so the Haverhill family. I found census records for them, and they were Big Grove because he mentioned going. He's going south and trying to get to LaSalle, and he mentions Georgetown and the Haverhill family. Like he knew people there, and they were only one page away in the census records. I just want to kind of throw in, and also as I read through the memoirs, he's talked about this really good friend that he had, and he totally misspelled and got the name almost completely wrong in his memoirs of someone else. So I wouldn't write me off just because it's not Haverhill and it's Havenhill. He frequently, his own daughter had to edit things sometimes. Sometimes he got names a little bit wrong, but this Havenhill, that his daughter was married by a clergyman with the last name Smith. But you see, there's page 36, and I the screenshot, you can see Havenhill, and I could highlight it, but I decided to throw this in just because you can't see Bibbins from the screenshot. So here you see page 35 is the 29th day of August, 1870, and then you see the same date, 29th day of August, 1870, page 36, and page 35. Just one page away, so the same day. But you'd have to scroll down in order to find Joseph Bibbins, but I'm doing this so you can see it. He's about 40 years old. At this point, he's a clerk in the store, but yeah. So this is the man that printed my picture, and he was 30, when it said artist, and then and tax records, it said photographic artist. So he liked to call himself an artist and a photographer. So I just thought I would throw that in there so you could see, since the screenshot didn't show Bibbins, I didn't want to have to zoom all the way out to here. You can't even see the page number. That's why I screenshot it that way. Anyway, just throwing that in there. I think 1870, one page away from J.S. Bibbins, one of the children that was like the similar age, someone I'm like, who would he have known, who was closer to his age, because he doesn't mention a first name, but But yeah, Newark was also called Georgetown. So now I'm like, he talked about Newark. It was only 10 miles away, but you know, for many years it was called Georgetown. Anyway, you guys, I know I could talk on and start getting into all the details of all the evidence and facts of things that I know now that are so supportive that I still believe my picture is a photograph of Joseph Smith. I do think Satan is real and it doesn't want this to come out. I just, sorry to get all negative in a video or two, but I've been through some recent medical trauma as well. It's just hard to have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and have run into a bad doctor or two, but they can be abusive. They can physically hurt you. And so yeah, I just shaking talking about it last weekend. It just anyway, and then it just sort of makes me more sensitive to other stuff. But I'm glad that I've put just send forgiveness. Like I forgive you. There's nothing I can do about gossip and lies other than I just felt motivated and talked to my old bishop that was a lawyer. I'm like, I have to say something more than being super vague, but I still can't get specific. But like, I just felt good about getting a little more specific because I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. It's okay. I feel good about it. So, but pray for my safety still. Um, he went to Newark. He frequently went between those points. It'd been a while by 1887 since he'd got 6 years since he'd gone between these points. But his wife, second wife, was from there, here in LaSalle. That's where he talks about that. And so in 1860, he's talking about this whole region, LaSalle and Georgetown, and this is where all the RLDS saints, where there were a lot of members of the church. You have all these people. It even says Norway right there. All these Norwegian people speaking a different language. It's scary. Like if they are not experiencing hardship. And see, initially, you see how far away all this stuff is. But Quincy is where initially, the Nauvoo is just north of there, right? But then Emma does come from this direction to Plano. Apparently, from one book, it was 1869, about the year that he married a woman from LaSalle, but his family's living here. It even makes more sense. Like she would have, her and David Hiram went there in 1869, but he's also courting. His wife has died at that point. He's also courting a woman down here. But yeah, anytime he's talking about Georgetown, he's not talking about the one that's way down here. He's not talking about that Georgetown. That's really far away. He's talking about passing through. He would no way have passed from that Georgetown. He's talking about this Georgetown because it used to be called, for many years, it's called Georgetown. So, as George Albert Smith is talking about traveling through. Anyway, so it's just right here. They talk about Newark in the Joseph Smith papers. So there was a conference there, and he's talking about the area that George Albert Smith, his uncle, did proselyte. So his father-in-law would have known George Albert Smith. And so they initially went to LaSalle, and then they arrived in Newark. And the Haverhill family was from, Big Grove, and then it's often like marriage records, like where you're from. Then they say the township. I mean the village, which was Newark. So then the daughter is from Newark when she got married. So she would live with her family until she got married. That Haverhill family was from Newark that he's talking about, that I found. You can look up the Haverhill family. And it's the one, I don't remember, I'll pull it up again, but I might just throw a screenshot in there. It's the one child that actually has a picture of themselves, that was close in age. It's Joseph III, so. It's just the case just always gets stronger. And the Haverhill family is like one page away from J.S. Bevins that Justin the Third knew. Anyway, have a good day.